What's up guys, it's Nicole, also known as Nikki Vegan, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you some really easy holiday side dishes that actually don't have that many ingredients, but this video is really going to focus on cooking techniques and some little tips and tricks I've learned along the way for presentation and plating that really elevate these dishes into something extra flavorful and extra beautiful, and I feel like just kind of makes it look very impressive and special for the holidays. So I hope you guys are excited, and let's get started. So my first tip is super important, and that is to make sure that your Brussels sprouts are very dry before you put them in the oven. So you don't want to wash these, cut them, and then put them into the oven while they're still a little bit damp, because that water is going to steam in the oven and it's going to create a really mushy, kind of bland Brussels sprout. So what I like to do is wash them, cut them, and then lay them out on a towel to air dry on the counter, or you can even do this a day or two before, and that way they're super dry. Then I'm going to add 2 different kinds of pepper. This is going to be a really subtle difference, but it creates a nice depth of flavor. So the cayenne pepper is going to add just a little bit of heat. You can leave it out if you don't like spice, but these aren't spicy Brussels sprouts. It just has a little bit more dimension, I guess. And then also some black pepper, and the combo of the salt, pepper, and cayenne pepper is really the only seasoning that you're going to need. Now, another tip that I have for you is to massage your Brussels sprouts. Just like you would do with kale, you really want to work the oil and the seasonings into the leaves, and honestly, this part's kind of fun. You just get your hands all in there and squish them around, and if you have kids in the kitchen that want to help, this is an excellent job for them to do. I preheated my oven to 400 degrees, and before I preheated the oven, I actually put the pan that I wanted to use inside the oven so that it came to temperature. And this is also a really important step that's going to create a really nice crispy texture. And you might notice that I don't have the silicone baking liner that I usually have on my pans. And as much as I love those silicone liners, this is not the time for that. You really want to have direct contact with the Brussels sprout and the hot pan. And I like to just turn over the Brussels sprouts so that the cut side is down. It just encourages a bit more caramelization and flavor. So these are going to go into a 400-degree oven for about 30 to 45 minutes, depending on how big your Brussels sprouts are and how crispy you want them to be. Every 15-20 minutes or so, I like to take them out, check on them, shake them up, maybe stir them around with a wooden spoon, just to make sure that all the sides are getting nice and golden brown. But you definitely want to have a heavy amount of caramelization and color. Then I go ahead and I sprinkle on some vegan Parmesan cheese. I'm using this one from Violife. I just think it melts so nicely, and this is going to add a bit of richness and a salty flavor that is just so good with Brussels sprouts. I really like when the garnish is also what's inside of the dish, especially at holiday times when people are kind of wondering what's what. So I like to add a little bit more cheese on top, and also some red pepper flakes so people know there is a tiny bit of kick, and also a cheesy element. And I also think it makes it look pretty. The red and the green is always nice, and these are ready to serve. There's a blog post in the description box below with the full Brussels sprout recipe that you just saw, and a couple more tips that I think are really key when it comes to making delicious Brussels sprouts. One of them kind of blew my mind, and that has to do with the actual pan that you cook it on. You might think that you can just throw the Brussels sprouts into any old pan and just pop it in the oven and it's going to be the same, but that's actually not the case, and it's kind of interesting as to why that is. So I wrote about that in the blog post. Make sure you check that out if you're going to be making Brussels sprouts, because it's just a tiny little change that makes a huge difference. Okay, next I'm going to be making some really delicious green beans. Now I know a lot of people don't like green beans, or green bean casserole is a big thing, so if you want to try something new and make green beans taste really good, this is the recipe for you. So all I'm going to do is rinse off some store-bought green beans that have already been trimmed. That's a great holiday hack for you. I don't do this all the time, but especially around the holidays when I'm already chopping and mixing so many things, that little help from the grocery store with pre-trimmed green beans, super clutch. So go ahead and rinse those off, and then I'm going to take about 1/2 cup of almonds, very thinly sliced almonds, and you're just going to put that into a dry pan over about medium-high heat. And you want to stand here and keep an eye on it, because they're only going to toast for a couple of minutes. I promise you, if you walk away to check your phone, you are going to burn these, and that's not going to taste good. But what we want here is a really nutty aroma and kind of a slight tan on the outside of the almond, and this is going to really enhance their flavor, make them a lot more crunchy and delicious. Then I'm gonna make a sage brown butter sauce. For this, I'm just taking 1 stick of vegan butter. This is the Country Crock plant-based butters. And I'm just like melting this over about medium-high heat, and I add some sage leaves. I usually add a lot more. I've tested this recipe since filming this and I added more, so that is why the recipe says more when you check the description box. But what this does is it really infuses the butter with a lot of flavor. So this is gonna turn kind of a nutty golden brown color, and it's going to impart so much flavor into the green beans. So I set that aside, and I also go ahead and steam the green beans. Now you wanna do this lightly. I think one of the things that people dread at holidays is mushy, overcooked, soggy greens, and it doesn't have to be that way. All I do is I just steam these until they turn a bright green and they're softened and kind of a little bit sweeter, but they still have a little bit of a bite and a little bit of a crunch that is very pleasant. So drain those really, really well, and then I like to sprinkle them with some salt. I add the brown butter over top, and I'll do lots of black pepper along with the almonds. And as you can see, this is very simple. It's just salt, pepper, butter, and almonds, but that little bit of sage that's imparted into the butter is going to really give this a Thanksgiving kick, and it is just so delicious. Now, plating here is really key. I find that the almonds kind of fall to the bottom of the bowl when you're mixing, so I like to just scoop out the actual green beans and put them on a platter instead of a bowl, and then scoop up the extra almonds and kind of line them up on top. It's super simple, but it looks a little bit more special even though you really didn't do that much. All right, so here's where we're gonna wanna use a silicone baking sheet, and that is because we're gonna be cooking some sweet potatoes. And if you've ever made sweet potatoes in the oven without some kind of liner underneath, you know that they get really messy, and they're kind of sticky, sweet juices that come out of them when they bake can be really difficult to clean up. So I really recommend using a silicone baking sheet for this recipe and anytime you're making potatoes, baked sweet potatoes, because it just makes cleanup so much easier. So I found these mini, kind of small to medium sized potatoes, which I think is really nice because everyone can have one on their plate without it being way too much. And I'm just gonna poke some holes into them. And again, you want these to be dry. Then into the oven they go until they are nice and fork tender. And in the meantime, I'm gonna make a Rosemary Compound Butter. And that sounds fancy, but it's really just a flavored butter. And for this, I'm just gonna use about a tablespoon of rosemary with some sea salt. I'm also gonna use some thyme, which again is gonna impart this really nice kind of festive holiday flavor, and some celery seed. And that might seem weird, but that is an ingredient that's traditionally used in stuffing, and there's just something about it that gives this really nice background flavor. And then I'm gonna take some vegan butter. You wanna make sure this is room temperature. That's how you're gonna really incorporate all the herbs and spices evenly into the butter. Try to get it into the actual mixing container, not onto the side like I did. But either way, you're just gonna blend it all up until it's nice and smooth, and blending it like this is gonna make it kind of fluffy. Now, traditionally, a compound butter would be rolled into a log using plastic wrap and then sliced, which you can definitely do, but in order to avoid using, I don't know, unnecessary single-use plastic, I just kind of pressed it down into the bottom of a bowl. You wanna make sure that it's compact and then let it sit in the fridge to harden up. At this point, my sweet potatoes were ready, and as you can see, they lift off really, really easily because I used that silicone mat, and cleanup is really easy. It washes away super fast, so that's why I really highly recommend using a silicone mat whenever you're baking potatoes. Then it's time to season the sweet potatoes, and you guys, these are so good. I am so excited for you guys to make these at home because all the flavors that we're gonna add here really just bring Thanksgiving together. So here we're gonna do a little bit of sea salt, then we have some crushed pecans, and also some kind of finely chopped cranberries. Now the cranberry adds texture, it adds a little bit of sweetness, and also like a tart, bright flavor. And combined with the sweetness from the actual sweet potato and the savory herbiness from the butter that kind of melts over the top, and a little bit of black pepper on top, like finishing it all up, it just literally tastes like Thanksgiving, which is why I called these Thanksgiving roasted sweet potatoes. And they are, as you can see, very easy to make and something that I feel like vegans and non-vegans will absolutely love. All right, so that is it for this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up and share with your friends and family, because I know a lot of us are looking for easy recipes to serve this time of year. There's so many dinners and get-togethers and potlucks and all different kinds of things. So share this on your Facebook wall or on your Instagram or whatever it is. I would really appreciate it, and I hope you guys have a great day. I'll see you later. Bye.